It's 10:01. We got a lot to cover.
We have a lot to cover.
Without further ado, I'm Colleen Graves, and I am our Director of Community Engagement Curriculum. And I like to call myself the instigator of fun, because my job is to create project ideas and share them with you. And Tom is our VP of Education Initiatives, and he is our trainer, amazing dude, and he like travels all around and trains other people how to use Makey so they can train more people to use Makey. I feel like you're like the Makey pusher.
I'm like Johnny Appleseed, sort of. As a matter of fact, before I forget, next week in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, I'm leading a one-day Train the Trainer workshop. And if you would like to attend, I'll put the registration link in the chat window so that you can check it out. There's still some spaces left, and would love to have you.
I am noticing that some people are using the Q&A and some people are using the chat. And so let's do a little housekeeping before we open the slideshow. If you have a question, you can use the Q&A. It'll kind of live there longer than the chat, but you're also welcome to use the chat. Usually what happens is I talk a lot and Tom helps monitor the chat. We might take turns this time on that one, but make sure when you are chatting that it says all panelists and attendees, because you aren't going to want to put it under just the panelists. And then also we do have on our educator resource page or the educator page, we do have a list of all upcoming workshops, whether led by Tom or one of the people he's trained. So that's good to know. And then we're going to go ahead and show you, I started answering a question, which is probably not a good time to start answering a question. So I'm going to go ahead and open the slideshow that I made. I'm having trouble, you guys. This is because Tom and I did this yesterday. Hey, Tom, I remembered to do share computer sound today. Oh, it says I have to restart to do that. So I guess I'm not sharing computer sound today, so I apologize for that. All right, we're here to tell you about how to get beyond the banana and how to make your classroom more invention focused and interactive. And one way we think of doing that is by using our Makey invention board. We call it an invention kit that's focused on getting kids and adults to be more creative, because we believe the world is a construction kit and everyone can embrace their own creative confidence by learning through play. And I think that makes us a little different than some companies, because we really are about playing. The only other people I know who have that learning through play hashtag are really the Lego people. I mean, a lot of companies do promote that, but we're really about taking everyday stuff and smashing it up with your computer and creating your own inventions. So students can create inventions with things like drawings and paper and pencil and foil, and then they can take Makey as the digital duct tape and connect that physical hardware they made to their computer with an app that they've created, a game they've created, something they've made online. They can invent online apps, they can make scratch projects, they can make code arcade games and mash them up together with the physical hardware that they've created out of cardboard that complements those online creations. So it's kind of a mouthful when you say all of it together like that. And this is because our co-creator or co-inventor of Makey is really, he did his whole thesis on the world being a construction kit. So he really likes the idea of you seeing how the world works and then making new stuff. So another way to call that is invention literacy. And that is just the idea of the literacy of being able to read inventions so you can write new inventions, is the way I like to say it. But I also like to say when you create new stuff with old stuff. And there's actually a really great video that we'll share in the window, because apparently my audio is not going to play anyway, and videos never work very well. We have too much to go on to show here, but there's really great video of Jay Silver talking about invention literacy, and he kind of shows how like there's an old camera and then you take all the little old camera pieces apart and you put it together into a video camera. And I just kind of really like that idea, and I've shared that a lot with students over the years. where we talk about invention literacy. I've done invention literacy research projects where I have kids research an invention and then make their own version of that invention. So sometimes you can reinvent things, right? That's something that's really fun to do for kids. So it's really good. That video is good. I think Tom's going to share it in the chat window, and it explains if you explain how our world works, it often empowers students to learn how to make new stuff. But we're here to talk about Makey, and so that's one of the important things is invention literacy, but we have to talk about what is a Makey. What is this crazy thing? And we know, actually, I'm sure that almost everyone on the call probably has used one. Yeah, thanks, Tom. Should we do that? We didn't do the what grade level? Oh, we did do what grade level, but should we ask how many people are brand new to Makey? I mean, we're going to assume you are because you came on the call, but I already saw some of our very experienced makers. There is a way to raise your hand in the chat window if you want to all try raising your hands. Of course, then I may not be able to get it back down. So maybe in the chat window, if you're really new and you're here because you just really don't know what to do, let us know. We like to know that. This is the front of the Makey, and this is the back. A lot of people don't go crazy with the back. In fact, this is the 1.2 version we have. We're up to like 1.5 right now. But there you can even see the world as a construction kit on the back of the Makey. There's 18 inputs total, but what kind of makes it different is you have to use that bottom strip, earth, and then you have those 6 keyboard inputs on the front. And you use those to connect to our everyday world. And I forgot I was gonna bring a piece of broccoli with me to be over here so I could do a live demo of my Is It Conductive jacket. So Makey works by having a earth. So I've made my own tape piano. So here's earth, and here's all my inputs. And oh, my other computer's making dinging sounds. I was trying to figure out where the dinging sounds were coming from, you guys. And
Colleen, you might want to, your slides, I think, are mostly front and center. So to get you.
Minimize it?
Or maximize your screen. Or maybe everybody can double click on Colleen's video.
Oh yeah, I forgot. There is a little thing where you can make it 1 person or 4 people or make it smaller. I can make it smaller. Whoa. So I make me bigger. Let me just stop sharing.
I double clicked on your image. And
how's that?
Yeah, I think that it's easier to see you now.
All right, so here's our Makey, and I realized too that maybe the audio's, you're not gonna be able to hear it. Let's see. Put this over here. But if we, and click has to be over click or it's not gonna work. All right, so this is just showing that you have earth connection, and then you have your left arrow, up arrow, down, or right down space and click. And right now it's connected to an app that does a piano. But I can connect it to anything and I can make anything in Scratch, and that banana piano is the thing that we see the most often. Hey, Tom, we're at 101. Tom owes me tacos. All right, sorry, y'all. Sorry that you have to deal with us and our silly taco jokes. So I do want to show this video because I did make a, I forgot, it won't let me, you guys. I have so many things freaking out at me right now. Is my video sharing?
Yes.
Okay. This is it's an old project that I made into a mini guide. So an Is It Conductive guide. I did this whole last 4 or 5 years I've been teaching Makey. I've been running circuit stations. And this is one of the stations where we just test, is something conductive? So it doesn't even have to have sound. It doesn't have to have anything. And here's the coat in real life. And it's even on. So that if I touch earth and I touch the space key, it's connected to space. Sorry, you guys. Actually, it's on and unplugged, even though I plugged it in. So even your wearables sometimes get broken. There we go. Is the LED coming on? Makey. It's really not being friendly to me today. Sorry, you guys. This is what happens when you try to do a live demo. Hey, we noticed this at BET, right? Like things wouldn't work. All right, now it's gonna work. You see the LED comes on because my hands are conductive. I didn't bring enough fun stuff to show, but if I take this piece of foil, right, then my LED is gonna come on. And I just made this pretty quick video to show, oh no, my coat's too heavy, to show all the things that are conductive. So this is just a really quick project to do with kids. You can do it with 2 pieces of HVAC foil. So you just test to see if something's conductive. So you might try broccoli. You might try a sponge. If you try a dry sponge, it's not gonna do anything. And if you try, there we go. But if I put my sponge in a little bit of water and then I test it, oh, it is conductive. And that's because everything in the world is either conductive or a resistor. I got to turn the my audio. Oh, I forgot I could just turn the audio off. So I can just check and how many things are conductive or not conductive. That doesn't mean I can light an LED without the Makey and all these things, because they won't have enough electrons flowing through to actually light up an LED. But it does work with Makey, and I can test what's going to work because I'm using I'm using the Makey and it's testing. So this is my favorite, is the light switch, because if I put a light switch on, then it's on, and if I turn it off, then the LED doesn't work anymore. And that's one of my favorite testing items in the Is It Conductive station, because it teaches a kid that a Makey really works the way a light switch works. And I think that's pretty cool. You have inputs that this is what makes us really fun, is the inputs are any scrappy things that you want to put together, and the output is just the keys on your keyboard. So I want to let Tom talk.
Can I interject? Yeah, I was going to interject. I was looking at the Q&A.
Yeah.
I actually fielded a similar question earlier this week from someone. And the question was, if you're using a Mac and you plug the Makey in, I'm going to guess that everybody here who has used a Mac with the Makey has had the experience of a pop-up window appearing. And the pop-up window says something to the effect of either can't recognize this device, or you need to install drivers, or something like that. And in fact, and it's almost always a Mac. It has never happened to me on my Chromebook or a Windows computer. But in your box, that if you have a box like this that your Makey came in, then you probably got, I'm hoping, this set of instructions. And one of the pieces of instructions right here, and I'm going to try to zoom in on the video.
It helps.
I'm sorry. I can't make it stop.
Is this little instructions that says ignore the pop-ups.
Yeah.
And that means just close the window, because it doesn't make any difference. So if you have a Mac and you've seen this pop-up window, just close the window and keep proceeding like you've never seen the window.
So I did want to say, I wanted to go back to the slide, because I did want to say that reason that we see so many banana pianos is because playing a banana, like tapping a banana and hearing a piano sound, is really magical. And so we definitely think you should keep doing it, because it's really amazing. But what's cool about Makey is that since it relies on this resistive touch and the idea that everything in the world is either a conductor or an insulator, that you can create your own input devices, like anything. It can be drawings, it can be bananas, and that's what really makes Makey fun, right? And get some kids who are kind of usually not that interested in maybe whatever you're doing. I think I've only had one kid out of the thousands of kids that I've taught ever not be excited about Makey, and that's even high school students. Like generally high school students even love Makey because it's silly. And it kind of brings them back into that creative world as a kid, when you kind of didn't know what things did. And you would try weird things like smashing up, I think there's that video that Jay has of his son, like taking a book and smashing his other things in the book. And that was kind of part of the inspiration for Makey. So you can change all your keyboard signals because all your computer thinks, even though it has that pop-up window, all your computer thinks you've done is plug in an external keyboard. It doesn't know your external keyboard is bananas or drawings or any of those things, plants, right? And for me, it's really fun when you do those things that really don't seem like they should be conducted, like a plant. I mean, and a glass of water. Those are really fun to create. So it's just magical, right? Tom, you're supposed to talk about the keyboard keys.
Yeah, so keyboards. So one of the things I like to say about the Makey, to really boil it down, is that this device, this Makey, is sort of the oddest looking keyboard you'll find. And by that I mean that if there is something on your computer screen that can be changed, manipulated, altered, whatever, using the keys of your keyboard or your mouse, you can do the same when you plug in your Makey. So these keys on my keyboard, on this next slide, you'll see is that,
I know, I'm gonna go back. I'm just getting the link.
So these keys on the keyboard are actually switches. And so these, we don't think of them as switches, but the moment that I touch a key on my keyboard, I'm closing the circuit. And by closing the circuit, my computer says, oh, you've closed a circuit on the arrow key, right? And so right out of the box, you'll see that the Makey has the up, down, left, right arrow keys, just like my keyboard. So if there's, like the piano program that Colleen was using moments ago, it was operated by the arrow keys. And so I can play that piano using the keys on my keyboard, or the moment I plug in my Makey, my computer says, oh, there's another keyboard attached to the computer, and I can operate those same arrow keys with the Makey. So that's the idea behind the key is actually a switch. So if you think of it like that, you'll be able to remember that all we're doing is opening and closing circuits, whether it's with your keyboard or with your Makey. And we've been talking about the front of the Makey and the arrows and the click and the switch here, but on the back side, there are, right out of the box, I can control the WASD-FG keys and some mouse functions as well.
And I think I remember that when we were at BET, we had a teacher who was really confused, and we've often met teachers who get confused about how they can do a piano without holding earth. So you just need to remember that your earth can be connected to anything conductive, just like the keys. So you don't have to hold earth. You can put it magically close by so that you could do it in this way where you just touch and both happen. Now, oh, I turned my sound off. I was like, why isn't it making piano noises? Right? So that's really, I think, the big leap for teachers who aren't used to teaching circuits and aren't used to teaching this type of way. And I know that's one of those things. So again, that's what makes it so fun, is that we really promote, we're not telling you to go buy more stuff. We're telling you to look around you and find all this everyday stuff and see, what can I use to make my own switch? So here in the drawing, the person is earth and the banana is the key, and the computer just thinks, oh, I'm pressing a key. And so what makes you get creative is when you think, well, what are the two things I can mash up with this digital duct tape in my world? Right. So once you get that concept, you have to move on to the idea of physical computing. And physical computing is the idea of combining actions in the real world with actions on the computer. So that's why I like to call it the digital duct tape, because Makey relies on physical actions on the outside in the everyday life that trigger something on your computer. And that makes it the gateway to physical computing. Do you want to share anything there, Tom?
Sorry, I'm answering some questions as we go.
I'm trying to grab my coat. So the idea is that the other thing that that's fun about this that I always show students is that computers are actually only as smart as their user. So if you plug things up wrong, it's not going to work the way you want, right? That's important. And so you have to make sure. So when you take something like Scratch, you can code your own invention. So this is my, I don't think it's going to be loud enough for you to hear, but this is my coat that I made for Bet, so that when you touch each, let me see, it's not loud enough. Sorry guys. Wait, it's gonna work. So I have a little portable Raspberry Pi hooked up over here, and it should work, but it also looks like it's saying the sound is off.
Your heart is a pump.
There we go.
That helps push blood to all the places throughout your body that need oxygen and nutrients.
So I can code each of these buttons to talk and say what each organ does. But this is the part that's kind of interesting, was if you plug it up wrong and you're gonna play the wrong thing, that's what makes, to me, that's part of the fun of Makey is teaching the difference in that hardware and software and how those two things communicate. We will show lots of ideas of how we're gonna use Earth here right now. So going further with your Scratch creations, you can use Scratch, you can use code.org, has its own project thing now. I still have to go in and test it out. But you can use anything, and I'm actually really excited. I've noticed some people using other coding languages in Instructables right now. So there are people who are actually sharing some projects with MIDIs that they've used. There are people sharing projects with P5JS. So you can do JavaScript, you can do Python. It's just whatever you're comfortable with. But obviously, a lot of us are ready to start with Scratch. So this project is one of the first projects I ever did with Scratch and Makey, and it was the idea that you could draw your triangles. So you would draw each type of triangle, an obtuse triangle, a right triangle, and then in Scratch you would code it to say, like, where is an obtuse triangle, and then I would touch the right one. So in this one I'm still holding Earth and touching it. I'm the Earth example. But this, Tom, can you share that project for everybody?
Yes.
Okay. And then this piano is there's a large scale version of what I had before. I'm going to try to make my sound work this way. See if you can tell me if you can hear it. So this is a full scale. Earth is on the bottom. My heel is Earth. Well, I can't even hear it, so I'm thinking it's, oh, because I have the mute on. Don't you love it when tech people are bad at technology? There we go. So one thing, I was trying to pause it. One thing that's a trick in that video that you maybe can't tell is that I'm actually, with my left foot, I have Earth pressed. And then with my right foot, I'm pressing the piano keys. So that's just another tricky little way that I've used Earth and the keys to create something that doesn't require me to hold an Earth, but I'm actually making a switch. And this is similar to the way an actual keyboard button is made. It's got two little squiggly lines that are really close to one another. And then when I press on the top of the key, that has a full flat layer of conductive stuff. I think it's graphite. It's graphite, or I looked it up and now I've forgotten. But when I press my hand or my foot on it, that's just like the keyboard pressing down and connecting those two traces. And Tom, you should share that high five thing. I don't know why we didn't put it in the slideshow.
I will get that.
Yeah. This is on the left is a project by Fraser Makey's, did a project at Signals in the UK where he had students create interactive book art. And I just love this because he just basically said, what's your favorite scene from a book? Let's animate it. And that's really cool. And on the right is a group in the Netherlands who actually played with the idea those circuits are made to create a talking book that also has different LEDs that light up on each key press. And that's, they kind of did, I do have a guide hiding out there somewhere that shows you how to do that. Normally when you use the key out, it's only gonna press all key presses are going to light up an LED, but you can make once you learn about circuits enough, you can actually physically make that work. So, whoa, I was going to try to play it. All right. I won't play the whole thing, but. So as I'm sorry, you guys, I'm trying to hit space to stop the video. But as their little pointer connects Earth, you see the LED light up, and then in Scratch they've coded that page of the book or that page of the story to tell, which is really cool. In primary school, we have some really great ideas from some of our ambassadors. So Bradley Quinton and Kimberly Boyce, who are Houston educators, did this biography bottle project where the students make a biography bottle, which I think is actually a really normal research project for elementary, but I really love the physicality of it. So they're researching on Pebble Go, and then or Britannica or wherever they want to research about a historical figure, and then they're coding in Scratch the facts about that person, the historical person. And that project, we'll share that project with you. Also at the end of this, we'll share out the video and links to all the projects. Nathan Seckinger made this Makey talking book. So let me play it for you.
Old Bear rolled in the snow. Little Bear rolled in the snow.
Tie your scarf tight around your neck. You might catch a cold,
said Old Bear. No, I won't.
So you can make your whole book interactive, which is pretty awesome. And that Tom also has an example of that I think I shared the video right after this. And someone said they were doing the Dolly project. So the Dolly project focuses on making something with two conductive parts. So figuring out that idea that I have to have two conductive things, and then coding it in Scratch. So you can either code it to play on random, or you can code it to play in order. And both those things are teaching you different computer science concepts. So on this picture.
I'd like to just quickly jump in and say, let's pause for a moment and help everybody remember that this might seem like a lot of complex ideas to some, but if we go back to the idea of completing a circuit, or let's take the Makey out of it for the book, the interactive book project, and just if we go back to that book for just a second, you'll see that the physical component of this, which makes it really cool, if you take that out of it and just go to the Scratch coding part, the Scratch coding part is very easy and straightforward, and we'll have a link for you on how to do that. Again, if you're not using Scratch, there's other things that you can use, other coding platforms you can use to do the same thing, which is record a sound and assign that sound to a specific key on your keyboard. There you go. So this is it might be hard for you to see the image, but it's really just recording a sound and assigning that sound to a specific key on the keyboard. Why a specific key? Because we're using the Makey and attaching the Makey to the book, so that when you're opening the book and you're on a specific page and you want a specific sound to play, that's why it's important to be able to record a sound and assign it to a specific key. And then you use the Makey and the alligator clips to attach the Makey to the book, so that the right sound plays when you want it to. Am I making sense?
Yeah, that's what I was saying about a computer is only as smart as its user.
Yes.
So once you get the right keys, like I could hook all the wrong keys up on my piano and the sounds would be wrong, right? So once you get the idea that this is the left, up, down, and right, and space and click, and on the back I have WASD, then I'm coding. A third grader can do it. I've seen second grade actually do it. They can code in Scratch all they have to do is record the audio and then say, when I press the left key, I want this sound to happen. And when I press, actually, oh, I'm too short on my my little Raspberry Pi. I was going to pull it closer so you could see, but it's plugged into the wall and it won't work. But yeah, it's just really simple. And there's even that Makey extension in there now that makes it even easier. So really, these are the beginner ideas. These are where we start with these, just coding a sound, right? And so the Dolly guide is just not just coding a sound, but also thinking what are two conductive things versus when I was just trying to play with one conductive thing and me holding earth. Now, what are two items that can be conductive? So my children made these dolls, and my fourth grader at the time made this Rusty guy, and he has two little aluminum foiled toes, and you hold the toes to make him talk. And my 3-year-old, was she 3 when she made this? 3 or 4, made this cute little clothespin one, and she wanted to hot glue the washers. So kids are pretty smart once they've figured out what's conductive, how they can take two things and make them the conductor. And then my fourth grader at the time also wanted to make like a moving sidewalk. So if you go to the Dolly guide, you'll see that you can actually code it steps on the sidewalk. So it doesn't always have to be touching two things. It can be one thing that's completing the circuit. So the other project I really love is the Tinkering with Circuits guide that we'll share with you here too. But that has how to make that simple circuit with LEDs, where you're actually making paper circuits that aren't connected to Makey, but then you will also connect them to Makey, so you'll see how they work. And those are two of my favorite primary school things. Then we want to get a little more complicated once we've learned about the way that the sensors work. You can start making more complicated sensors. So on the left, we have this fraction generator guide, where as you pour water in, should I go out to that guide, Tom? Where you pour water into, I think I can. Let me go to my notes. I think I can click the link. I'm not good today, you guys. I'm really sorry.
I put the link to the Instructables in the chat.
For the fraction generator?
Yes.
I just really want to show the, is it going to show me? I like the GIF I made. So as you pour the water in Scratch, you can actually see the fraction build. So you can see that the water fill up. Does it work on your screen? Can you see it?
Does.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Yeah, so like to me, this is really fun. And this coding is more complicated. You can see that my logic is getting a little bit more complicated here. So I'm looking at how I can code 4 different sensors and how I can code them if they're pressed and that is pressed. So I'm using and/or logic to code this Scratch generator. So why did I open a whole new window? Oh well, go back. And then on top of that, you can even code volume if you want, which is really gets us to be a little more complicated in our Scratch coding. And on the right, we have a design challenge that Tom and I are in the process of our next webinar, interviewing the teachers who did this. So we won't go too far into it, but this is really something amazing. I don't even know how to get all the way through the story now that I know so much about the story. I'm gonna bring it all the way back to the senior math class was challenged to create a cash register for these cafe students that were special needs students that run a cafe Friday mornings. They needed a cash register where they could touch for the food item that a student wanted to buy, and then it would also, if they put in the money, they coded the change, which is pretty crazy. So I did code a calculator for my own daughter's STEAM day, and I'll tell you that was one of the hardest things that I ever had to figure out how to code, and I felt so smart afterwards. And I still need to make the paper calculator guide because my oversized foot calculator was too hard. But these kids, that was their math project. So they all worked in teams to create cash registers for the cafe students, and this is the winning design. And it is so cool. If you look at it, you might be able to tell that it is a ping pong ball, and it uses that concept we've been saying where 1/2 is the key and 1/2 is earth. So then when the kid touches it, it makes the connection for both. And yesterday, Tom and I were talking to these teachers, and we found out the coolest thing was that the one kid who decided to use ping pong balls, a girl in the class said, well, we should split it in half. And the reason they were using the ping pong ball is because the student they were designing the cash register for cannot physically grasp, or she couldn't push, right? She wouldn't be able to push. She didn't have the motor skills to push, but she could just tap on something. So really, this is like where we're start to see Makey go from this banana piano to really beyond the banana piano, where we're designing things for other kids. We're designing things for other people so that they can do something they couldn't do before, right? That accessibility, which we're going to go into even more in depth here in a second. So I'm keeping Tom from going off the rails on accessibility. But I was really inspired last year by John Lynch, who was working on this explode the controller concept, which is sort of similar. You kind of see what we're breaking out of the box here. Explode the controller was about exploding the controller and making kids get physically active. So the bounce box is like a huge pressure switch, which Tom, I just realized we didn't share a pressure switch at all yet. So we should probably put that link out there. And a pressure switch kind of has an air gap or foam gap, and this is space and this is earth. And when I press them together, then I'm making my key press. So the bounce box with the tennis balls is made that way so that students have to jump to actually make those connections. And that's pretty cool. And the slap switch is also made with the space key and the earth key, if you can see that. And that's one where you slap. So the slap switch was the one that I fell in love with the idea, because what he would do is he would challenge kids to either create a scratch game that worked with it, or they would find a better scratch game and create their own new slap switches. But he has videos of kids running back and forth in the studio, the Learn to Teach, Teach to Learn studio, running back and forth to hit these switches. And that is a really cool group, this group in Boston. They teach kids concepts, and those kids go out and teach other kids concepts. So we'll share more about him. He's got a whole blog post. There's a whole blog post about John and that work. And then, so I saw that, and then I saw Eric Turrell, who we're going to have a webinar next month, which is actually 2 weeks from now. I think it's March 3rd, so keep listening for it. But it's going to focus all on STEM in the gym. And STEM in the gym is kind of taking that John Lynch concept of how can I get kids to be physically active? And I challenged students. I went to my daughter's school and I challenged students to create games in Scratch that make other kids get physically active. And I won't play the whole video, but to show it, like we did start out with banana, like that's their banana piano. We used Orbeez. If you didn't know Orbeez are conductive, it's kind of the most fun ever. Then we made switches, and then I taught them how to create scoring in Scratch. There's that ultimate stomp pad that you can do too. And they learned how to do scoring in Scratch, and then they were challenged, how can I make a game that makes kids get physically active? So my favorite one, well, they're all my favorite because I can't get on to them about that, but this is called Shapes. So this is a game where it's kind of like a twister thing. Earth is in the center, and Scratch is yelling out the shape we have to touch, and the teacher and I are competing to see who can get the right shapes. This other game is based on like stomping in the right moment to get the games going. And then this is my other favorite, is the bongo relay race. So this is the one that Tom and I always talk about, like only a kid could come up with this concept. You have to hit the bongos, and then there's a timer that actually says switch, and you have to run back, tap your friend, and then they go and they tap the bongos, right? So this is just a game to get kids physically active. Really cool concepts made by kids. So this is where we want to see kids go from taking the banana piano, making their dolly project, to at some point being challenged to create something that they want to create. And I think that's like the coolest thing about this STEM in the gym thing, was just saying, what do you want to make that can make kids get physically active? I could never assign a kid to make a bongo relay race, right? And and Tom and I said, like, as adults, we wouldn't come up with that concept. So it's really cool to see what happens when you challenge a kid to to make their own project. Kind of an example similar to that is this project that Design Make Teach, or Josh Ajima had. I'm not actually even sure what he assigned his students. I just know this is a really cool project. This kid made this interactive art project where in Scratch, every time you touch the keys, you'll see the key press thing the senior made. But if you look in the center, the scene is changing. So it's atmospheric. Every button you press changes the atmosphere of the mood of like the moment that you're having. So you're actually coding an experience here. So those are just the buttons, but as you press the buttons, they give a connection to Makey, which says, okay, change the atmosphere, change the mood of the windows, right? So you're making interactive art here, which is pretty cool concept too, that kids can code mood and tone, right? So you can easily take that into an English project. It doesn't have to be this totally arty project. It could be that. On the right is one of those STEAM Day projects. So I challenged myself to make 4 oversized games. I created 2 and I stole 2 from my husband, who I think also got most of those ideas from Eric Turrell. But this one is one that I made. It's a collaborative sensory maze, and one path, the purple path, is Earth, and the green path or yellow path is Space Key. And the kids have to hold hands to complete the circuit. And as they hold hands, the music plays and it goes da 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 da. And if they stop holding hands or they get off the conductive path, the music stops and they have to start over. So it kind of created the Flappy Bird experience of like, oh, I have to get through this maze. And then you can see there's handprints and things. So they have to stop and think together, like, what do I do now? Like, this is a loop-de-loop and these are handprints, and there's no more metal tape. How do I get to the next conductive spot? So this is one of my favorite projects I've actually ever made. Tom, I feel like I'm doing all the talking. You must be like in the chat window.
I'm working on chat and answering questions. And this would actually be a good moment. One question has come up several times is, okay, is this being recorded? Are we going to share this? Yes, and yes. Both. It's going to be on the Makey website. We'll announce it later, and as to where it is and how to get there. And it will also include all the links that we're sharing in the chat. I've been trying to answer questions and go through and make sure that in both the Q&A and the chat that I'm trying to answer things as we go.
Well, Tom, we're at the part where you're going to want to talk. So I'm going to stop being over-hogging the slide share. But I will share before I move to that, because this is kind of our baby steps to it. You can code animations. And so I created this guide about changing images with Makey in Scratch, which I just realized I didn't put that link in our big doc. Tom, I'll have to put that in there. You can code those key presses to change images. So I had a teacher, Rebecca Gratz, who's in Virginia, asked me, she said a first grader wanted to code something so that a student who was hearing impaired could tap something and show us the sign language, right? So this is her example of that sign language. So she was able to code that to teach her kids how to do it. And how cool is this, that you can code sign language now, right? You can really code anything. So that's really the point we're trying to make here, is that you can do anything and you can actually open the world up for others, and with this idea of accessibility. And we've been recently learning a lot about some occupational therapists that are using Makey to make things better. So Tom, I'm gonna let you talk about your TEDx talk and Trisha's amazing concept, which really she kind of did what you did.
Yeah. So I will mention before that we've been talking a lot about Scratch, and one of the reasons is that Makey and Scratch work really well together, and no surprise there, because the co-inventors of the Makey, Jay Silver and Eric Rosenbaum, were instrumental or on the early team of the Scratch team at MIT Media Lab. And while we're talking about Scratch, I will mention that soon, early March, maybe the 3rd, I can't remember, is the Scratch conference registration happens. If you've not been to the Scratch conference, it's only in the US every other year. On the other years, it's somewhere else on the planet. This year, it's going to be at MIT Media Lab in Boston. and Colleen mentioned that, but if you'd like to go, you're going to want to head over to that website and bookmark it so that you can register, because if memory serves me, registration
it fills up
filled
fast. Yeah, it fills up fast. Because I wanted to go 2 summers ago and I wasn't able to go because it was already full.
600 people from around the world of all levels, you know, from complete beginners of Scratch to advanced, and all types of teachers from kindergarten through PhD and after school professionals. So anyway, it's a really quite amazing experience, and Colleen and I are hoping to be there to lead a workshop and do some different things with some of our friends there who are also leading workshops.
And if you can't tell, we love Scratch. We think it's
it's pretty amazing.
We think it's pretty amazing. So Tom, tell everyone about this accessibility challenge that you did and that Trisha did.
So when I first heard about Makey, which was just through the web, and seeing the Kickstarter video, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the device. I just thought, oh, what a cool thing, banana pianos, right? And so I thought to myself, I'm going to get one. It's inexpensive, relatively inexpensive. But within a couple days of buying that, I had lunch with a friend of mine who was a computer science and math teacher at a local high school here where I live in Asheville, North Carolina. And we were talking, the two of us, about how to really engage students, but specifically his students in his coding class. And because they were doing a lot of just screen time, you know, students typing on their laptop and working on code and coding problems. And so I suggested that we get his students out into the community to solve a real problem where their students could put their coding skills to use. And I suggested, for example, that his students go to the local food bank or, you know, another nonprofit, but let's say the food bank, and go in and interview the staff, interview the volunteers, maybe interview some of the people who are receiving some of the benefits of the food bank, and then get a list of challenges or problems that all of these people that involved with the nonprofit are encountering. Come back to the classroom, look at the list, and try to figure out, is there an item or two or three that they could actually create an app, like code an app to solve a real world problem. And so my friend liked the idea, and he said, hey, how about you come in and volunteer to do that? And I said, oh, I've done this before, volunteered myself. And I said, well, actually, I got this other crazy idea I'd like to try, and it involves this thing called a Makey. So I had another friend just a couple miles away who was the principal at an elementary school where one wing of the school is dedicated to serving kids with severe and profound physical and cognitive disabilities. And I thought it would be amazing for the high school students to meet and work with these elementary school students to learn about some of the challenges that they have, and then code a game for these kids and build the interface for that game, the game controller, if you will, that is appropriate for that child. So if, for example, there was a child that we worked with who was paralyzed from the neck down, and he had this really expensive device that attached to his wheelchair with a clamp, and it was like on an articulating arm, and he could tilt his head to push this button. And so the students saw that, and you can see in the video here that Colleen's playing is that there's a student playing on a giant piano. And this particular student had been in a car wreck with his parents, and he had received a blow to his head that made it difficult for him to balance. So what the high school students wanted to do was gamify his physical therapy. So you can see that he's struggling balancing, and this goes back to, Colleen had the video of her playing the giant piano. So the giant piano, floor piano, can be used for fun, and it can also be used for physical therapy.
Yeah.
So it's this whole idea of engaging students in authentic design, authentic experiences where they're really are creating something that solves a problem for somebody and essentially makes the world a better place.
Yeah, and we did this webinar with Trisha last year, so
yes.
We'll share this here too. Oh wow, Jody is saying that that she had an idea that someone was making, their student made a science fair project where they created something to help adults with dementia. So that's pretty cool. But Trisha also did the similar thing. I think she had middle school students who created projects, who created games and assistive technology for other students in the school. And that webinar, it's a full hour. And she goes through how she actually did the whole process. And I suggest that you watch it if you're interested, because it's really, really cool. But we also did a project with Build a Better Book that also builds on accessibility. And that is, Build a Better Book is about building an accessible book for all students. So if someone can't see or can't hear, how are ways we can make books accessible? So that's a whole thing using maker technology, not just Makey, lots of different technologies, but moving that all the way to the occupational therapy idea. We've seen these brilliant occupational therapists. We had Jennifer Shank, and then we have Katie Ezebutsu and Mark Lyon, who are creative makers. So they've got this hula hoop switch, which I think I should be able to copy this hula hoop switch that helps kids. It is gamifying their occupational therapy. And it's really just the coolest thing to see these occupational therapists are going, oh, we can really gamify this. Like, I think Jennifer Shank is the one who had the hand controller, where a kid had to work on his hand movements and his hand control. So she coded this game for him to do that. And it's just the coolest thing ever to see this project that was made for Seeing the World as an Invention Kit become this amazing resource for empathy and design thinking, and actually creating something to help someone else, which that's really where Tom and I want to see all these projects go. We want to see all the kids ending their projects with these amazing ideas. And we're not saying you have to do that, obviously, but it's just such a really amazing thing to see kids go from, something really funny like Orbeez and fart sounds to creating something that's actually going to help another person. Another project that Katie and Mark did that I just like, I'm stuck on the concept of it, and I think it would actually work with my collaborative maze, is that they had even just done the idea of, like, if you have thick enough socks, this is the gross thing that you may not know about Makey, but if your socks are sweaty, then you will conduct through your socks. So that's why people do not have to be barefoot when they play the maze. Also, never ask 300 fifth graders, 300 elementary school students to take their shoes off. That was a really bad idea. But if you design for kids who walk on their tiptoes, because my daughter walks on her tiptoes, you can actually take a sock and cut the heel out. So if the sock is thick enough, it's not going to conduct, right? And then only her heel would connect. So I could actually take that maze and use it to teach my own daughter how to walk on her heels, because she's a tiptoe walker, which really eventually is going to hurt her feet. So really cool stuff to see how we can take that banana piano all the way to this accessibility idea. We're running out of time, right, Tom?
We're getting close. Okay,
so before we go, we want to show you the Instructables Teacher Hub. And I just want to show you where our resources live, because I feel like I've spent a year creating resources, and sometimes it might be too many resources. I'm having a hard time getting my screen not to be gigantic, so I apologize. And sometimes it's just there's so many resources that people don't necessarily know where to go. So if you're on our page and you go to resources, and our how-to guides there's a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today, and these are supposed to progress from easy to harder. So you can see there's the first time setup, there's apps you can just plug and play, And then is it conductive is the first thing where you're kind of making your own thing beyond creating a controller, and there's sketch it, play it, and getting started with Scratch. So we have all these resources here for you already, but if you also on the resources tab, you can go to the Instructables Teacher Hub. It's instructables.com/makeymakey. You can share your own ideas here. So here's the projects I was telling you about where someone's using P5JS, which I think Ian Maddie uses P5JS, Tom. I think I remember him talking about it. But these are all projects created by teachers, for teachers. And here's even one where someone was having kids create a tool to help other autistic kids. So you can search through there, anything. If you want to search Makey up here, you can find more projects. And they have a contest running right now. I actually had the page open. There's that Makey contest. There are 19 prizes and 18 entries. So you have 13 days left to enter this contest and win $500. So you should really go about doing that. And then the last thing, I finally got the Q&A to pull up. I kept trying to pull up the Q&A and I couldn't do it earlier. The last thing that Tom and I want to talk about, which is something that's a little bit upsetting. So I don't know, Tom, do you want to talk about it? We've been seeing in our support channels, and we just posted a blog about it. In our support channels, we've been seeing that people are ending up buying a product they think is a Makey, and it's actually a fakey. So when you buy a fakey, it doesn't give us any support, and it doesn't, and we can't actually help people who have fakies because we didn't make them. So we can't, like, we have people who are asking us to send them the real board after they've bought this fake product. So we have a post put out for you to identify what's fake. Sometimes it's really hard because they just use our images and they're posting. If you buy direct from us, then you know that it's correct. And then we're also working on our resellers overseas for all of you who are overseas. But if you see on the right side here, if you see a black cable or a white USB cable, that is not a Makey. And if the alligator clips are these normal colors and not our fun saturated colors, then that is not a real Makey either. So we just wanted to, do you want to add anything to that, Tom? We wanted to share that because it hurts us, when that happens, and we aren't going to be able to keep doing these free webinars and all this free content that we share. We're able to do when you buy a real Makey. So
and also there's functionality, what we're finding in these things. Like, for example, one of the things that we didn't talk about today is remapping. If you get to a place where you say, oh, I want to operate keys on my keyboard that are not initially available on the Makey, we have this process called remapping, and it's a website. It's really easy to use, but you can control any key on your keyboard using the remapping system, but only ours works like that. All of the others don't work like that. And there's other issues that we see. So I don't want to go into this in a big way, but I will say that there's more and more articles, and if anybody's bought anything on Amazon, you know that there are lots of fake products out there. Yeah. Not just ours. We're not the only ones dealing with this.
The thing that was crazy is we share in that an article about Amazon from Wirecutter where people are buying things like for their children. And then I went in my own brain and went, oh my gosh, I think I just bought something for my child and I probably bought the fake version of it. So it is kind of, it's something that you really have to be aware of when you're on Amazon to make sure you're not, or if you're not buying from, if you already know you're buying something fake, if you're buying from certain websites. I won't mention them all right now. But yes, I'm going to take us back to the Instructables Teachers page so we don't go on about it. I saw a couple questions we should answer. One, yes, you should go vote for Andrew's breadboarding project. It's really amazing. And I'm going to show you that on the Makey contest real quick. He actually shows you how to make your circuit with a breadboard, which is like one of the things that broke me when I first started doing these projects with Arduino, was like using a breadboard. I was so confused. So actually for me, sewing my circuits so you can actually see my beautiful sewn circuit. This is just like breadboarding. Sewing my circuits actually taught me more about breadboarding than trying to do it for the first time on my own. But that was one question I noticed. And then someone asked if homeschoolers can obtain educational discounts. Our Jay Silver is all about homeschooling and alternative schooling. If you fill out the same form, you ought to be able to get the teacher discount. So that's that question. Is there any other questions that we didn't answer that we need to answer, Tom? Andrew McCaskey, I was trying to send you the answer to this in the very beginning. If you ever want to use our image or logo, if you just send us an email at support@joylabs.com, we can, we're probably going to be fine with that. You usually just have to send us an email and then we have a record of it. I think that's all the questions.
I'm thinking if we haven't answered a question in this, we can always answer questions. Oh, we forgot to mention the Facebook group.
Oh, yes.
And why I mention the Facebook group is because Colleen and I, oddly, aren't up 24/7. And but there are people from around the world, educators from around the world that are members of our Facebook group that are so helpful. And people will post questions and they will post projects. Like Nadia, who is in Iraq, she posted a project on how to code sounds to Scratch. And so there's just so many helpful, wonderful people in our Facebook group. I would encourage you to join and participate. That's also another place to get support. We will support you, and we also need to sleep. And I think I should be a parent sometimes too. Is that right?
You should. And if you go to our educator page and you scroll down to find a workshop, you'll see all the workshops that we have, any trainings that are coming up, either that Tom is doing or one of our trainers is doing. So with that, it is way past the hour. And Tom, I think you need to go have a lunch break. Maybe you should eat some breakfast tacos. Is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday.
Tuesday.
You can go get Taco Tuesday. And we want to thank everyone for joining us. As we said before, we will actually share all the links in a post. We know we overwhelmed you with all of our content today, but we're just so happy to see people using Makey and doing creative and fun things. So please share your ideas on Instructables because you never know who it might help. And thanks again for coming today. And we hope to see you at our next webinar, which will be we have two coming up. One is going to be with Unruly Splats and Eric Turrell for the STEM in the Gym. That's March 3rd. And then also in March, we're going to do the one, we're going to talk to those teachers who made that cash register. It was an epic project, how they challenged seniors, a senior math class to design cash registers for students with special needs. So that's a really cool project that we're going to be sharing soon. So thanks everybody and enjoy the rest of your day. And like we said, we'll share the recording soon. And anything you want to add, Tom?
I think that's it. All the links again will be in that post. So, but if there's something that you need urgently, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and we know you all want Tom's banana hoodie, but sorry, you can't have it. All right, bye guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye everybody.